Wake up, wake up. Larry Krueger, Damon Bruce. It is November the 6th, Wednesday. The 49ers coming out of the bye week. The Bucs are next. Christian McCaffrey's on the practice field. Later today, we talk about it all right now.
Wake up indeed. We're brought to you by Sam's Chatterhouse. It's great to have you here. Like Larry said, coming out of a bye week into Bucs week and into the second half and the trade deadline, which some said would come with a big move. Some said would really maybe change the shape of the 49ers season. Obviously, the 49ers felt a bit of a different way because very little happened. A move on the margin and the re-signing of safety Tayshaun Gibson is really all that happened. The 49ers didn't get aggressive. Larry, I didn't think that they were going to. Neither did you really, and they certainly didn't.
No, I mean, they made a move, as you said, just kind of on the margins, and they brought in a player that they felt like they needed, a defensive tackle. It's interesting. The 49ers, they have a bunch of needs. I mean, it's like we're acting like some people acting like, oh, well, they only had one need and it was their run D. No, what are you talking about? They only had one need. Their special teams is a circus. Their pass rush is mid-pack at best, as far as sacks, pressure rate, all that kind of stuff. And their run D is also not great, but the O-line's not great. The wide receiver speed's not great. The experience at free safety is not great. The linebacker depth is not great. I mean, they have several things that aren't great, but they obviously chose run defense, and it makes sense because you look at the teams on their schedule in the second half. There's a lot of good running teams. Khalil Davis I'm not going to pretend that Khalil Davis is a good player. This is his sixth NFL team.
Right. He's a 28-year-old. He's a 28-year-old bounce around guy who adds more to the concept of depth than he does to the concept of making game-changing plays. But he's not a bad player. He's got a low center of gravity. He's going to be hard to move. Maybe his experience playing with Malik Collins will pay off in some way. Maybe Chris Kasurik will put his hands on him and he will morph into a better brand of player than we've really seen out of him. I'm not here to tell you what he isn't, but it isn't much of a resume. And he's certainly not much of a game-wrecking player at all. So,
I mean, he doesn't have good length, doesn't have good size, doesn't have long arms, kind of short arms. But what he does have is he's always had great strength, right? And good motor. I mean, 32 reps of 225, so he's very, very strong. He's a former shot put and discus thrower at Nebraska. And he plays low, he's quick, he plays hard. As I said, the motor revs high. He's pretty polished, pretty disruptive, pretty agile, pretty quick, nice closing burst. But what he doesn't have is he doesn't anchor against the run. So they needed run help, so they added Khalil Davis. Well, he doesn't really anchor against the run. You can move him against the run. If you look at his film, he's played 172 snaps this year. He's got 5 tackles, 8 pressures, 4 run stops. He's just a guy, but he's a guy that can play in a rotation. So it gives him another NFL caliber rotation player. He's been playing, so he played the last 3 weeks. So it's not like a guy that, hasn't been playing. That's this time of year. You got to figure out who's actually in shape, who's been playing and can play and play right away. I looked at the defensive end spot as the more pressing need because they really only have Bosa and Floyd. And after that, it's like, well, what's Yatir Gross-Matos going to give you? Well, I don't know. He's hurt. And what's Beal going to give you? I don't know. He's raw. He's young. Sam Aquinu's been okay. But at tackle, they have Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, now Khalil Davis. They've got Kevin Givens. They also have Kalia Davis, and they have Evan Anderson. I get the feeling, Damon, that maybe they felt like Kalia Davis is hurt a lot. And he's not hurt right now, but he's hurt a lot. So, he's a durability concern. And then Givens right now is out with the groin. So technically the only, if Kalia Davis is hurt and Given's groin isn't ready to roll, then your third tackle becomes Evan Anderson, the rookie. And I just don't think they wanted to put that on him. So I just think they wanted to have one more body there. And Khalil Davis, as I said, can play in a rotation. Is he a world beater? No, but he should help them a little bit in a rotation.
You know, Tayshaun Gibson, if they really thought that he was a player that they needed, they wouldn't have let him go. But now he's back. That's not a bad thing, given the issues in the secondary and in the safety play. You know, it's another guy to have back there. Another guy who, you know, isn't an inexperienced rookie playing maybe out of position. We'll see. But, you know, what do you really think, Larry, the 49ers trade deadline tells us about them and how they see themselves? You know, they could have gone after Darius Smith, right? That would have been a bigger move. They decided not to. Wasn't exactly a huge package that delivered him to Detroit. Felt like other teams who are already better positioned than the Niners were more aggressive than the Niners, who need to, you know, make up a couple laps to get back on the lead lap here. What do you think John Lynch is telling us about what he thinks of his team through a lack of a really interest-generating trade deadline?
I don't think they have any more money to spend. I think that's all earmarked for Brock's contract. They know they're going to have to.
I'm glad you said it. That's what I think's going on more than anything. They're down the road
money.
Planning.
They have no money to spend, and they don't want to give away any draft choices because they know they're going to need all their draft choices. I mean, they're going to have to say goodbye. I looked at the list. I mean, we could call it up right here. The Niners list of unrestricted free agents: Aaron Banks, Mooney Ward, Demo Lenore, just to start right there. And they might not be able to sign any of them. They might have to say goodbye to all these guys. So they might have to kiss off Banks, and they may have to say goodbye to their starting corners. And, you know, so I mean, they're in a tough situation financially. So I don't think they want to spend any more money. And then I don't think that, you know, no contract in the NFL will go up more than Brock Purdy's goes up from this year to next year. And so they have to accommodate the biggest jump of any individual contract in the sport. And then they also need to retain as many of their draft picks so they can fill out a roster, despite the fact that they're going to have to probably going to have to offload 7 or 8 players and maybe 5 or 6 good players just to accommodate Purdy. So,
yeah,
you know, what if you had to get rid of Lenore and Mooney? Okay, so then you go into this draft and you're like, we need an offensive line, but we need a corner.
It's Lenore, Mooney, and Kittle. You know, I mean, that's the thing. There's going to be a big name who you really like and root for, who's on the team this year, who will not be on this team next year. And that is the price of doing, you know, top tax bracket, you know, paychecks with your starting quarterback. The Niners had an incredible window and opportunity with Brock Purdy on the rookie deal. And unfortunately for them, they did not get it done. And getting it done with Purdy on his next deal is going to be a whole different equation. I mean, the math looks different on all of it. So to take what you think is this year and then say, well, the continuity of this year rolling into next year's roster will look drastically different, I think, than this year's roster. So, like, let's recap. Look, where are we going into this Tampa Bay game, right? It was a disjointed and disappointing offseason. It has been a disjointed and disappointing regular season to this point. They're also just a player or two away from having a much better record. And as always, the argument is out there, hey, if that's true, you're a player or two away from having a much worse record. That is also out there and true, but it's like that for everyone. That's just kind of how the heartbeat of the league works. A teeny tiny move at the deadline that adds depth but not really any impact. The injuries that affected the start of this season are now your last point of hope and retreat, as I think a 49er fan, for a dramatic change to happen this year. Guys who were hurt and unavailable at the beginning of the year will hopefully now be unhurt, less hurt, and available in the next game or two and for the remainder of the season. And it feels like that's what the 49ers are really counting on here, Larry. Like they think that the cavalry is coming from inside their own locker room. And look, with it being CMC and Feliciano and Juwan Jennings and Yatir Gross-Matos and Jake Moody, maybe that does happen. Maybe that does happen. I just know this. They better beat Tampa, because if a distinct rest advantage and all the time in the world to prep for this team is not enough to get them over that hump and hill, it's going to be really hard to look at the remainder of this, the first 4 games of the second half for the 49ers, with 3 of the 4 games being on the road: Tampa, Green Bay, Buffalo, and then home to Seattle. I mean, everything you're going to need to know about this season, I really do think gets revealed in the next 4 weeks. So it's hold your breath and hope Christian McCaffrey is ready to play the role of Superman. And that's probably an unfair ask, and it's probably an unrealistic expectation. But he's going to have to be remarkable. And really, from here on out, Brock Purdy, Larry, is going to have to be Montana-esque to really say, with great, for everyone to be like, yeah, their Super Bowl window is still totally open, man. They're ready to win another champ. They're ready to win now. For us to go from where we are to thinking like, yeah, they're legitimate, real Super Bowl contenders. They're going to have to start playing some spectacular football independent of availability. And in order to get that done, they're going to need Brock to just be flipping amazing the rest of the way. Oh, and the defense
can't turn it over. Right? He's got to curtail the turnovers for sure. I don't think you're going to see McCaffrey assume the full load. I just don't. I think there'll still be a lot of Garendo, a lot of Mason, a lot of
That's
Debo.
Great, but he's got to be the red zone answer. He's got to be.
But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's like some of those other guys, it doesn't. I mean, they're not as big. I mean, they're going to get Jake Moody back. Obviously, that's big. He's your kicker. He's also the only kicker you have that can kick it through the back of the end zone. So that helps you on coverage units, especially on the kickoff. So Jake Moody's coming back this week, it looks like. Juwan Jennings is coming back this week, but he's more of a possession receiver. Yatir Gross-Matos, who knows? I don't. What's he even going to do? What's he even done in his career? Right. To me, the 2 guys that are everything, it's Greenlaw and CMC. If Greenlaw and CMC return and they are the players they were, the 49ers are absolutely in the Super Bowl mix and have a great chance to go. Well, why? Because they. Well, but here's the thing, though. We've never seen a year where we've gotten to November and Greenlaw and McCaffrey would be this fresh. So that's unique, but it's all a matter of, can they do it? If they can't do it, it doesn't matter how fresh you are. If they can do it, the fact that they are incredibly fresh may lift this team in, right onto the level of Detroit, but it's a big, big ask.
It is. It's a huge ask. But I do think of all the guys to have a huge ask of, he's got the pedigree that can maybe fill the bill. He really does. Look, you talk about Dre Greenlaw coming back. You talk about McCaffrey coming back, how Brock's got to be great. Shanahan is just going to he's going to have to be on his 1s and 2s the rest of the way. He can't miss a beat as a coach. This team has no more room for special team errors that go into the equation of why you lost today. So all mulligans, all breakfast balls, all do-overs have been used. Everything that happens here really matters and counts. There's a part of me that thinks the other guy, who, by the way, this morning should wake up feeling great, right? Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa has got to have a monstrous second half for the 49ers to remind us of the 49ers that we used to know. An intimidating defensive line that has your quarterback not under pressure, but scared, like actually worried about, can I get this play off before this hulk of a man is pulling me down to the ground? And again, if look good, feel good, play good is part of the equation, Nick Bosa's always looked good. Based on last night's election results, he should really feel good this morning. And hopefully he plays like an absolute, like TJ Watt the rest of the way. And if he does that, the 49ers' chances of reminding us who they are defensively, I don't think they're ever going to be who they once were defensively, but just to remind us of that team, he's got to be tremendous the rest of the way. I mean, if we're putting all that on Brock, we should put it all on Bosa too.
Well, he's got 46 pressures on the year, only 4.5 sacks though. And that's the lowest sack total he's had at this point in the year, I think ever. Leonard Floyd has 25 pressures, which is 28th among defensive ends, and he has 3 sacks. So these guys have combined for 7.5 sacks, and that's just not nearly good enough.
Not enough.
And the 49ers are mid-pack in sacks. They're mid-pack in all these pressure categories because they're not getting anything beyond these guys. So these guys have to step up. I really felt the Niners needed a defensive end to spot Leonard Floyd better, to use him less, but they didn't get it done. So now it's a lot of pressure on Bosa, a lot of pressure on Floyd, a lot of pressure on Sam O, and they got to get it done. If those 3 guys don't get it done, they're not getting it done.
What was the compensation on Zadarius Smith? 4th rounder.
I don't.
Well, I'm looking up this as fast as I can. No, excuse me. Detroit sending a 2025 5th round pick and a 2026 6th round pick in exchange for Zadarius Smith and a 2026 7th. So they even get one of their picks back from the Browns.
The Niners didn't have a 5th.
So
Niners didn't have a 5th because of they lost it last year because of a mistake that they made, that they got docked their 5th. So they don't have their 5th. They do have 2/3.
It was a COVID accounting error, right?
Right. Which is ridiculous and inexcusable, and ridiculous, once again, that they would lose a 5th round draft choice over that. I'm not blaming the league. I mean, obviously the Niners did something wrong, but these are gold pieces. You only have so many bites of the apple, and to lose one of those on a clerical error is ridiculously fucking inexcusable. But beyond that, they
Joan and payroll.
They probably would have had to move a 4th round pick.
It's Jones' fault. Yeah,
they didn't want to move their picks because they really feel like they're going to need them. But I think it has more to do with the money. I think they extended further than the ownership probably wanted for Ayuk and a couple other guys. And I bet you they know that they're going to pay Brock the going rate, and they know the going rate's going to be close to $60 million, in and around $60 million. So they've got $54 million right now on the cap that they're under, and their whole plan was to roll $54 million over to next year, and that's fine. But this year comes before next year, and this year you're now a clear second fiddle to the Lions in the conference, and that's just reality. And you could have done something about it. You opted not to, so we'll see where it goes.
Are you disappointed in the status of the 49ers, Larry?
I am, because it's not about what you've spent in the past. It's what do you need to spend to compete in the present. And I don't think they're as good as Detroit at all. They got a puncher's chance against Detroit. They got a puncher's chance against Green Bay. Those teams are younger, healthier, and better. Right.
That's the thing. They're not going to be able to overwhelm, I don't think, either of those teams. They're going to need those teams to make their mistakes to present an opportunity to win a game to a Niner team that is, again, losing ground a little bit on the lead lap of the best teams in football, and then just the lead lap of the math that they're going to need in their own division to win it. And again, this is hair on fire football the rest of the way. And if they win, it's going to be a hell of a ride, right? Everyone's going to get real excited here, but I can feel it and see it kind of going the other way too. And it all begins in Tampa on Sunday. Larry, take me to Half Moon Bay, if you would, please. Show the good people what is waiting for them down at Sam's Chowder House, our sponsor here of Wake Up. Like and subscribe, everyone. We are co-streaming on both channels. Like and subscribe to both channels for all your Niners, everything the rest of the way. And look at that lobster roll. You need that in your life. You're going to need that paella in your life. Cioppino, no problem. They got that too. Sam's Chowder House, absolutely beautiful. If you're making a trip to the Bay Area over the holidays, if you plan on coming out here for a Niner game, Sam's Chowder House is closer to Levi's Stadium than the Transamerica Tower is in San Francisco. So go to Sam's Chowder House. You'll be thrilled that you did. They are awesome sponsors. And Raphael 5629ers, thanks again, as always.
Should we get a couple supers here since we usually wait, but maybe we should get a few
Larry,
in here.
it feels like the size of the chat. Have you tinkered with the settings on this? It feels like the size of the lower third graphic has gotten bigger and easier to read. Did Kevin do something here?
I don't know. Maybe it's a StreamYard update that I didn't realize, but I noticed that the picture for the person, so we have Travis Stewart here, is quite a bit bigger. The picture used to be really small, like maybe this big, but now it's like 3 times the size.
Nice job, StreamYard, or Kevin,
looks good,
or
looks
whoever.
Good. I don't think it's Kev. Travis Stewart says Grant's quote: 49ers need to earn CMC.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. I'm not sure what that means. I would say this, though. I would be shocked. Now, there was an article by Matt Barrows the other day, a mailbag, and Matty said that initially they will introduce McCaffrey and Slow, but that eventually he'll take his entire role back where he's the guy on every snap. I don't agree with that at all. Not the philosophical decision. Just I don't think that's how they're going to play their hand. I think he's, and I love Matty. I think he's fantastic, but I think he's wrong on this one. I just think that they know they've got damaged goods. They know that the Achilles on either leg could go at any time. So they're going to try to get him through this season all the way through to Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, maybe on Super Bowl Sunday, if it's like, it's now or never kind of a thing. Maybe it's a full dose of Christian, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be Garendo and Mason all year long. I think it's going to be at best, or at worst, I should say, it'll be a 3-headed deal.
I'll take it a step further. I think you get the most out of Christian McCaffrey with compliments, playing and taking carries away from him. I do.
Yeah.
Like
protect him from him.
What Christian McCaffrey was lacking last year had nothing to do with what Christian McCaffrey was providing. It had to do with the coach has no confidence in taking him off the field for a single snap. And that eventually wears on a guy. Christian McCaffrey's tires had more tread worn off them. And it all sort of revealed itself in a lackluster Super Bowl where he fumbles on the opening drive. I think that fumble was baked into the season throughout the season a little bit. Also, full credit to the freaking Kansas City Chiefs for causing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never know on those, but I tend to agree with you. I've talked to Roger Craig about this before, about the 1,000 year. Damon, the year that he had 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving, he did not show up well in the playoffs that year. And I was convinced that he was totally gassed. And of course, I don't see Roger Craig often enough to ask him, but I was doing an event with him, a number of years back. And I said, Roger, can I ask you a couple questions? And he's like, sure. And he thought I was going to ask him about the fumble in 90. And I said, no, I wanted to ask you about your 1,000 year. It seemed like when you got to the playoffs that I think he might've fumbled as well, Damon, in the playoffs. And I think I asked him about it. I'm like, hey, what happened in the playoffs that year? And he's like, I left it all out on the field in the regular season. 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving will take its toll on a body. It did. When he got to the playoffs, he had nothing. And I think the same thing can be said about Christian last year. He didn't have as much because of the usage. They should have backed him off. They should have protected him from him. They should have used Mason more to finish. Instead, they gave him the kind of you can write your own ticket. And he's such a competitor that he called his own number all year and he ran out of gas at the end.
Look, I think that, guys who don't even have a starter's workload in this league will tell you they have trouble getting out of bed on Monday. That's how brutal this league is.
Yeah.
So for a guy who is at the, center of the eye of the storm of amount of workload and carries and snaps and game day responsibility. It has to wear and tear. The thing about McCaffrey that is extraordinary is what an extraordinary athlete he really is. And look, he absolutely could be hurt in his very first carry coming back. Both Achilles pop. We never see him again.
It could happen today.
It could happen today, or it could not happen at all. Again, if anyone could actually predict injuries, God, the world of sports would be so much easier to navigate. The NBA thought it could for a while. They really can't. Again, if keeping players off the court guaranteed they wouldn't get hurt, explain Paul George to me. Explain Kawhi Leonard to me. Bodies break down. And it feels like with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, that is a sign that this man's body is breaking down. So, yes, Guerrero still gets the ball and Mason still gets the ball. And I actually think that the 49ers are better for that happening. And then you unleash what you have in McCaffrey when you need him the most, when you have to convert a red zone appearance into an end zone appearance. That's when McCaffrey's experience, knowledge, wiggle, superiority, whatever you want to call it, needs to be called on. But
Can I make a prediction? Can I make one prediction on this?
Please.
I predict that the 49ers will need another back than the backs they currently have.
Including Patrick Taylor?
Including everybody, including Patrick Taylor, including Keyshawn Vaughn, including Guerrero, Mason, not Mitchell, but McCaffrey. They're going to need. I just think that there's too much track left. You know what I mean? It's too many games.
Your prediction is they will be signing a running back off of another team's practice squad,
or the street.
Years over.
Yeah. Somebody will get released. That's another thing. There's a couple players that, the trade deadline comes, and that's yesterday. Now, as of today, there will be some players who get cut. One of them is going to be the safety. One of the safeties, I forget the guy's name, but he's a pretty good safety. Got cut earlier today. And then there's going to be some other guys cut. So I also think that, you always have the ability to pick somebody off a practice squad or off the street. I just think that, and maybe that doesn't bode well for the McCaffrey. Maybe I'm indirectly predicting McCaffrey may have a recurrence, but I just really think that they're not going to get to the finish line with just the backs they have. I think they're going to need another back to get to the finish line.
Well, or something extraordinary, which you're not even assuming happens. And that extraordinary thing is Jordan Mason's shoulder is good to go after the bye week. He does not get hurt anymore, and he's back to 5.6 yards per carry and bad motherfucker status. Like, if you tell me that's
Guerrero, Damon, how about Guerrero? When Guerrero could get better. I mean,
Guerrero had himself a decent October. Absolutely.
I've been anti-Guerrero as far as a running back and as far as instincts. But one thing that's perfectly clear, the kid gets better. And Shanahan said it the other day. He goes, he gets better after every carry. He does have a tendency to learn from his mistakes. And he looks like a raw running back, and he is a raw running back. But what's undeniable is the body and the speed. I mean, The guy is 220 pounds and a legit low 4.3 runner. So in a way, it's like in some ways, Damon, he's the best athlete on the field. So it's like, whoa, you got to get him out there a little bit. How many teams, if you got a guy that big, that fast, who's literally one of your best athletes, get him out there. I mean, we've already seen what he looks like, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. Imagine as he starts to get it a little bit more, as they start to realize, hey, he really likes this play, or he really likes this formation, or we can bounce him to the second level on this play relatively easily. I think Guerrero, if he continues to improve, could be a major shot in the arm, because what does McCaffrey give you? Big plays. And what does Guerrero give you? Big plays.
Well, and I'm also counting on Ricky Pearsall, just working right through the concept of the rookie ramp up. And he just is, playing out there like a real game day contributor. Jawan Jennings now getting more snaps and reps than he would have had Brandon Ayuk remained healthy. That's got to go into the it was a positive once it happened column for this year to work for the 49ers. And again, the head coach who takes, an awful lot of responsibility for every, fiber of DNA that is in the San Francisco 49ers. The head coach has got to have an awesome second half himself. Kyle Shanahan has to be X's and O's better than the opposing head coach every game from here on out. So it's it all had the team that was team. For some reason, it's not fitting together. These pieces now need to fit together immediately. I mean, and there's no more, like polishing the rough spots off the edges. This needs to fit together now. Because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that is good enough to beat you coming out of a bye week, for sure. Buccaneers are going to be desperate as hell, Larry. They don't want to lose 3 in a row. They don't want to give up more ground to Atlanta.
No, I know.
Everything the Buccaneers have to throw at the 49ers, they're going to throw. So,
yep.
This is going to be a hell of a game.
Get ready for a full Baker, deal. Get ready for, it's going to be a challenging game. I mean, there's no question about it. Bucs are playing well. Bucs played Kansas City better than the Niners played Kansas City, I think. So, I expect them to be pretty good. Angel Moreno says, good morning, fellas. It's a beautiful morning. The air smells good. The coffee tastes even better today. McCaffrey is back. Donald Trump won, and Prop 36 passed. I don't remember what was 36. Was that
I don't even
funding in schools or something? I don't know. I forget which one that was. Angel, we appreciate your super. Fuji Simeon says Embiid. Joel Embiid got a 3-game suspension. Not sure why that's applicable here, but
he got look, if you want to pay us $2 to tell us about a 3-game suspension, you can go right ahead. But yeah, Embiid you shoved a reporter who I
didn't see that.
Embiid shoved a reporter
yesterday,
a couple days ago from Philadelphia in the locker room who wrote an article where he basically said, so Embiid says he wants to set an example for his son, and he's not exactly doing that. And oh, by the way, he's maybe not honoring the legacy of his dead brother. I mean, it was a article that got way too close to home.
Why?
I don't know. Some guys got to play that role. Some guys got to play that role of I'm an agitating asshole in the locker. I'm the bad guy. I'm comfortable being the bad guy. I want to be known as the bad guy. I'm selling bad guy to my readers, to my audience. So I'm going to come in here and be the bad guy. And having said all that, Embiid cannot lay a finger on that guy. You cannot do that. He deserves his suspension.
How bad was it? Can you give us an example? I mean, was it a 2-hand shiver? Was it a slap? Was it a push?
It was nothing. Larry, it was nothing. I mean, had it happened on the street, it wouldn't, it was no big deal. Actually, I've not actually seen the shove, but it's not like he shoved him to the ground and the guy was picking himself up off the ground. He gave him a little, poke.
Yeah. I mean, here's my experience. My experience is that you can be rough as you want to be, as far as your opinion, if you keep it between the lines. You could be like, hey, Jake Brendel couldn't block anything, whatever. You could be super critical. If you then go, Jake Brendel's brother is, now you're crossing a line.
Right.
Jake Brendel's son. No, do not go there. If you want to say the guy can't block, say he can't block. And even Jake, who's probably just not going to like that, at least he'd be like, well, you know what? That's his job to kind of critique whatever. And he gets it. As soon as you go to wife, kids, family, personal information, now you've gone too far. You've vaulted way over the line. And the players are going to push back, and they're going to push back aggressively, and they should. And I'm with them on that. So,
yeah,
but that's how I feel about it.
Not push back physically, though. I mean, that's
you can't contact anybody physically.
No, and it's the old, who's got more to lose in this situation? And Joel Embiid has to be at all times doing the math. I have more to lose than this guy.
But even if he didn't, I mean, it doesn't. Gosh, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I mean, we can have disagreements without getting physical. If it gets physical, that means that you that you have run into like a mental dead end. And if you're running into a lot of mental dead ends, and you can't get yourself out of physical confrontations, you're probably mentally limited. So just, if nothing's worth it, it's never worth it. I saw an image yesterday of a guy who just dropped this woman on the street. I mean, she got out of her car. She's arguing with this guy, and he just punched her out. Her head just hit the cement like as hard as I've ever seen. And it's like, come on, that's somebody's mom. That's somebody's grandma. That's somebody's. It's like, let's, I don't know. Maybe I'm showing my age here, but to me, it's like, come on, people, grow up. Fuji Simeon says, what is the 49er game plan? Or it says gameplay, but I think he means game plan against Tampa. What do you think, Damon? What do you think the game plan is this week against Tampa? I've got some ideas, but give me what you think you would do here.
It's time for the 49ers to reestablish a run defense more than anything else. If they can't shut down the run and they let a balanced Baker Mayfield play action attack beat them, they're in a little bit of trouble. They got to start shutting down the run. And I don't know if they exactly made the right move to do that during the trade deadline, but we'll see. We'll see. In terms of how they go about attacking Tampa, how about this? I will be much better at answering that question on Friday when we do our, let's really preview the Buccaneers show. And so I don't just want to filibuster right here. But the 49ers need to become a team that dominates at the line of scrimmage again. Will they? I don't know. I really don't know.
To me, I think there's two things you got to do in this game. You got to stop Bucky Irving, the rookie from Oregon. He's 195 pounds. He's super quick. And he's just a tough guy to tackle. I mean, they've got a three-headed monster, Sean Tucker, Rashad White, and Bucky. But Bucky's the best of them for sure. And so they got to stop Bucky. And then you look at this defense. There's a lot of big names here. Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, Yaya Diaby, Levante David, Antoine Winfield.
Yaya Diaby? Come on. Find me a better name than that.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player too. But I'll say this: they do have some guys. I mean, the Bucs defense. If you look at the numbers, they've got more impressive names than numbers. Their numbers are not good, and I expect KJ Britt, the inside linebacker, to get picked on. I think Shanahan makes him the conflict defender. Britt is a big physical. I loved him in college at Auburn, but he's not a coverage. He's a run only. He's not a coverage player. So if you make KJ Britt, turn and run and cover, I think you can make plays on him all day. So I think pick on KJ Britt. Don't get intimidated by the fact that this Buck defense has some great names on it. Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, Levante David, Yaya, Antoine Winfield. There's some good players here. But their numbers are not great, and they will blitz you a ton. So that's the one thing with Todd Bowles. He's going to bring the blitz. He's going to bring exotic blitzes from all angles, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. But there's also a lot of big playability out there for them in this game. So I would like to see the Niners run the ball, dominate the time of possession. Why? Because if you looked at last week's game, Damon. Monday night, in Kansas City. So on a short week on the road, this Tampa defense logged over 40 minutes on the field. The Chiefs ran 83 offensive plays on Monday night. So this is a tired defense, and the Niners ought to take advantage by, in the first quarter, pounding them, keeping them on the field. If the Niners can dominate the time of possession in this game, I think by the mid-third quarter, the Bucs defense breaks and the 49ers win big.
If you're asking where is the one matchup that absolutely needs to be exploited in the 49ers' favor, it's Nick Bosa on Luke Gadecki. I mean,
where's his guardian cap? Who's a badass, but he's not. He's more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. Let's just say that.
So Nick Bosa needs to win that matchup over and over and over again. All right, what else we got? Fuji Simeon
says, I imagine the 49ers will at least try to keep one cornerback, Lenore, at the expense of letting Banks, Ward, Juice, Debo, Huff, Mitchell, possibly Greenlaw go. They're going to try. They're going to try to keep Lenore for sure. I think you centered
He's
on
one
that
guy I would
correctly.
not be saying goodbye to. He is already, their third best defender on the team behind Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Lenore is their best corner by far.
Yeah. Though, you know what? I kind of don't agree with that. I actually kind of think, I know this is going to sound crazy. I think Renardo Green is their best corner. And I think over time he's going to show that. He's new, so it's a little like shocking to hear people say Renardo Green's their best corner, but Renardo Green has played phenomenal football, and this guy's coverage is as good as any corner they have. His speed and athleticism and ability to mirror receivers is as good as any corner they have. I think this is the best corner they have long term. Fuji Simeon says, you two, who is your favorite for offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, MVP, and rookie of the year? Whew. That's a big question there.
Yeah, there's a lot to think of, a lot of mental Rolodex flipping through to go through that right now.
I'll give you a try.
Your MVP is Lamar Jackson again, I think, right now. Lamar Jackson or Jared Goff. I think it is one of those two names is probably your MVP right now. Defensive player of the year, I'm comfortable saying it's TJ Watt right now. Offensive player of the year, that could be Derrick Henry for the season that he's having with, offensive player of the year feels like it's more of a running back MVP, and MVP is the quarterback MVP these days. I don't know if there's going to be a wide receiver that takes that away from Derrick Henry. Rookie of the year. Is any rookie having a better rookie season than Dominic Pooney? I know he's not.
He's a guard.
Ineligible. Yeah, it's not going to happen. But
Jaden Daniels. I'll go with Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels might be knocking on the door of that MVP at the end of the season too. He could win both.
I'll go Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year. MVP. Who are you going with?
Lamar or Jared Goff?
God, I don't know. I guess I would go with Goff, but I don't love that one. Defensive player of the year, I'm going to surprise you. I'm going Xavier McKinney, the free agent safety who left the Giants and went to the Packers. He's got 7 takeaways. That's a lot of takeaways individually. He has been absolutely fantastic. Offensive player of the year, that's tough too. Derrick Henry's the leading rusher in the league. Justin Jefferson's the leading receiver in the league. Geno Smith has thrown for the most yards of anybody in the league. I don't know. Saquon's been good. Jacobs has been good. Zay Flowers has been good. I don't know. Offensive player of the year, I guess I'd go Justin Jefferson. I guess I would go Justin Jefferson, offensive player of the year. Xavier McKinney, defensive player of the year. And definitely Daniels, rookie of the year. And MVP, I have a hard time with that one.
That actually should have been the easiest to answer. Jaden Daniels is rookie of the year runaway right now to the point where he might even be MVP as well. I mean, he's been incredible.
He's amazing. MVP, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for that. I don't think it's defined itself. Dale says trade Nick Bosa for draft picks or players in the offseason. He is his brother. Way overpaid for 1 year. We want to look at salaries. Start with his. All right.
Could be a lot of tax, a lot of remaining dead cap that would be a reason to not do that. I'd have to look at the particulars of the contract. But yeah, saying goodbye to a massively bloated salary that you're now evaluating as, hey, he's just not getting home as much as he needs to. Yeah, he could absolutely be a casualty.
Only thing is that, the rule that I have is you never trade guys who command double teams on your front seven, and that would break that rule. Fuji Simeon says, to be honest, I wouldn't have any issue if Ward still needs another week. I hope the Niners organization and team reach out and offer support to him. They have, and his family, i.e. like the Bears did with Brian Piccolo and Peyton. The Niners have surrounded Mooney, and it will be his call if he wants to play this week. I I would never go about telling somebody how to grieve or when to play
Right.
or when not to play.
Oh,
I think you just check in with him and find out how he is. I mean, he lost an infant to a death. And I mean, anytime you lose anybody in life, it's a tragedy. But when you lose an infant, it's especially a tragedy. And I'm sure him and his wife are going through unthinkable grief right now. So I don't know.
Right.
Some people can compartmentalize and get out there and do it all. Other people literally need to have peace in their world before they can go do what they do for money. So I don't know what he's like or what he's going to need. So I think it's just kind of a wait and see.
Right. It'll either be an I'm not ready to go, in which case he gets all the grace and room in the world he needs to get ready to go again, or it's quite literally the opposite of that. And the football field is a sanctuary to him, and it will get his mind off of the tragedy that has just befallen his family. And that's where he'll feel normal for the first time in a long time again. So I don't know how it will work out for him, but just bless him and his wife. It's just,
I mean, there's no right answer here.
No.
I mean, you and I know Bob Fitz, who lost his wife to cancer in the middle of being a public figure and broadcasting, doing a talk show, yucking it up about sports. And then you go home and you've got to deal with the reality of that. He, just from talking to Bob, he found some salvation and some relief in the show.
Yep.
But then I know other people that literally have had tragic things happen to them in their life, and they literally have to shut it down and like pick it up in a few months. So everybody's different for sure. Fuji Simeon says Embiid one hand shoved around the guy's neck or pectoral area. Well, you can't do that. You just can't do that. Joseph Ernberg, Bosa better play big now since his boy toy won. Okay. Now it's Bosa's better play big. D Martinez 949 heard the Giants wanted a fifth for Ojulari. How do you not pull the trigger? I heard they wanted more than that. I heard they wanted like a third. So maybe maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't think the 49ers wanted to move any picks. I think they would have moved their third if they had gotten a player who was cheap and they controlled long term. I don't think that player was out there. Other than that, I think they would rather have just done like some kind of late round, pick swap type thing. I don't think they wanted to move off of their picks. D Martinez. Okay, we got that one. Blood Moon says John Lynch freaked Debo out since he called around the trade deadline. I did see that. Debo was like, I didn't know what Lynch was thinking or what Lynch wanted. Supposedly he called.
Oh, you mean like he's Debo's sitting on his phone and the caller ID comes up, it's John Lynch, and he's like, oh fuck, should I answer that? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like John may have called him during the trade market, and he thought he was being traded.
That was, I hear you. That's got to be a stressful phone ring to let go to voicemail.
Well, it's funny. It's like we don't make anything of it because guys get traded all the time, and these guys are making such big money, and they're traveling around anyway. And how many guys actually even live or have a home in the market that they play in? Does it really matter to them where they play? But when you really think about it, look at what a major interruption that is to your life. Could you imagine if all of a sudden you came home and it's like, oh, my work traded me to Cleveland. Now we have to move our house, sell our house, find a new home for the kids, or find a new school for the kids, find a new place to live, uproot everything. And it's not, we may have just signed a lease on an apartment or a condo. We may be, we may have just torn out the bottom floor of our house because we thought we were going to be here, and now we haven't built it up. I mean, it's like the timing of sports. What's the likelihood that it fits the timing of the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And then sports, it's like, it doesn't matter if it fits the timing of the rest of your life. Get on a plane, you let your wife figure everything out, and she'll meet you in your new city. I mean, yes, they're making huge money. Yes, they're living a great life. Nobody's feeling sorry, but man, I mean, talk about something that the rest of us can't relate to.
Right.
Could you imagine that?
There's not a lot of car
Ozzy, you
dealers.
guys are switching schools.
Yeah.
Honey, you need to find employment in the Midwest.
Right. Not a lot of car
and
dealers.
sell this house and buy a new house. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? I mean,
you're,
it's
you're the number one salesman at our dealership, and we are trading you to Detroit, Michigan to go help improve sales there. And we're getting 3 younger salesmen in return. Good luck with everything. We'll help you to the airport. No, look, this is the life of a professional athlete, and it is different than ours for sure. And some of the best advice I think I could give to any professional athlete is no matter what that contract says, I don't even care if you got a no trade clause built into your contract. Until you retire, you should rent, not own. Because
and some guys, and it's funny, everybody's different, right? And the same way that we all react differently to the same, might be the same occurrence, but we all react differently. The players react differently. Sure. So some are like, hey man, I don't care. Somebody else wanted me. But other players are too caught up on my last team didn't want me, the rejection of that. And some guys get mentally screwed up by it. Other guys can wash it away and be like, hey, somebody else wanted me. It's the business. That's just the way it goes. But other times it's like, dude, they didn't want me. And it's like, it's the only pro team I've ever known. And now that I'm disowned by the only pro franchise I've ever played for. And now I've got to go somewhere else and immediately kind of try to blend into their team, their locker room, their offense, their defense, their culture. You know what I mean? It's my wife's got to blend in with the rest of the wives. My kids have to find a new school to go to. I mean, it's just a lot. It's a lot.
So it's why a lot of guys will leave their wives and their kids in one city and then just go on to play out the string of the season in another city. And I'll get back home as soon as I can, and we'll pick up and move in the off season. It's a lot to move around. School districts.
And that's hard, dude.
Look, Mike Krueger has said this many times, and in many ways, he's right. Obviously, this doesn't apply to Buster Posey. Obviously, this didn't apply to Tony Gwynn. But, he would say, and Krueger, I guarantee you he's going to say it during a broadcast next year, you're not a major leaguer until you get traded.
But, I mean, could you imagine having to walk into the room tonight and tell Jack and Ozzy that Daddy's going to live for 6 months in another city?
Yeah.
And we'll see you down the road. I mean, that would break your heart. That would break his heart. That would, that's a major thing that these guys deal with. Can you imagine the guy who gets dealt 3 times in 1 year?
YouTube's traded me to Atlanta to be a Falcons content creator. I'll see you in February. Yeah, that would suck.
Or if you get traded twice in 1 year, guys, that happens to guys, especially in the NBA. It seems like it happens. Hey, I'm with this team. I get traded there and I get traded again. Yeah. I mean, or even if it's just like you're coming up through the minors, like Bryce Eldridge, he hasn't been traded. He's like the toast of the Giants farm system, but the guy played at 3 different levels this summer. And that means he lived in 3 different parts of the country and 3 different apartments,
hopefully 3 different, single young man who, doesn't have all in life around him that, you and I have in terms of family and children. I don't know. Maybe he's married. Maybe he's already got 6 kids. I don't know. But yeah, there's nothing. It could be huge perks to be. There's a lot of cool perks to being a professional athlete. Normal life really isn't one of them.
We got a couple good chats here. This one from D Martinez 949. Not a radio pro until you get fired.
Then Larry, you're talking to a couple fucking pros right here, I guess, Larry.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you this. When I first started in radio in 1995, the guy who hired me was Ron Barr. And he said to me, he goes, you haven't made it in this business till you've been fired. And I said, Ron, I'll never be fired. I show up early. I work hard. He's like, no, you'll be fired.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, Ron, no, you don't get it. I work hard. I show up on time. I'm not going to be fired. But he was right.
So Jack Buck famously, told my buddy Tom Ackerman, who's the sports director at KMOX in St. Louis, Missouri, and he's talking to Jack Buck, Hall of Fame broadcaster, and he said, Tom, there are 2 kinds of broadcasters: those who have been fired and those who lie about it. And that's it. It's
really true. It's true. And it's sometimes, these are a lot of times these are group projects, and you may not do a great group project, and maybe it's your fault, and maybe it ain't. Doesn't really matter. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, Damon, I understand the need for a salary cap, and it's here to stay. I wish, however, if for the players that teams draft and developing, that they still get paid their full due, but their cap hit is only 75% of the total value. So I hear what he's saying. He's basically saying incentivize the draft. So, in other words, if you are a free agent, you count at one level against the cap. But if you're a draft choice, you count at a lower level, and it's kind of rewards continuity and rewards teams that do well in the draft. I think this is a great idea. I like it. You know why? Because when you have rules like that, guess what you don't have? You don't have the Wayne Huizenga effect. And if people are saying, well, what's the Wayne Huizenga effect? Wayne Huizenga bought the Marlins and then signed a bunch of free agents, won a World Series, and then cried poor mouth and tore it all down. And then his bidding on these free agents elevated the entire, because it's arbitration sport that's tied, everybody's tied together through arbitration. So it totally, screwed up the salary structure. And then he rode in and rode out, got his World Series, and did tons of damage to the sport. That's not good. I think if you want to avoid teams buying their titles, the best way to do that is to incentivize the draft with what Fuji Simeon's talking about right here. So, in other words, Trace Jackson Davis, let's just say, the Warriors drafted him in the second round. Maybe he doesn't count as much against their cap as a player that they signed as a free agent.
Well, this is literally,
so then teams can't just go buy titles.
It's the team's, it's that NBA second luxury tax apron that was put in place to make sure that Joe Lacob couldn't keep the team that he drafted the right way together. These leagues are built to tear down their champions faster than they're built to prop up the also-rans. It's really hard to repeat because everything starts working against you. The whole league is working against you. The financials are now working against you. Your ability to retain talent that you have developed is now working against you. Yeah, there should be a reward for drafting well, allows you to retain those players at a less punitive luxury tax bracket or whatever we want to call it. In an ideal world, you would be rewarded for your good choices.
I like it. I think
it's not the world.
It's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
It's the way it used to be, Damon. There was no free agency until the mid 1970s. So who won? The teams that drafted the best and developed the best. Why are the Yankees and the Cardinals like two of the more successful franchises? Because they embraced the minor league system. The Cardinals at one point had like 26 farm clubs. The Yankees had all kinds of farm clubs everywhere, and they bought players from other teams like Roger Maris and other, from lesser organizations. So I do think I like it. I like the idea of incentive. Why? Because what is sports at the end of the day? It's their civic, their rallying points for communities. And there's a relationship that happens there. And the more relationships that the fans have with the players, the better a team is going to do. If you have a team and nobody in your community has any kind of relationship or tie to anybody on your team, that's not good. If you have a team that every single time you trade anybody, there's like thousands of kids everywhere that are crying, that's good. That means that there's a lot of people like emotionally invested in your team, and that means they're emotionally invested in the individuals, which probably means that you spend a lot of time kind of slowly and gradually kind of building your thing up. So
this is the problem with the Oakland A's, right? The Oakland A's were the least identifiable, least relatable franchise for so many years in a row. They literally killed the interest in the franchise.
Farhan killed it in the Giants with all of his myriad of nothing maneuvers and this guy's up and that guy's down and all these donkeys and minor league guys. And people, after a while, it's like, people here were like, hey, Farhan's glib. He's nice. He's smart. He's sharp. He's the future. And then they realized there's no end to this parade of dog shit moves. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, you know what? Farhan's a fucking joke and he needs to go. I mean, it literally, the bloom came off of his rose in a very rapid fashion because people are looking around going, I'm tired of rooting for Dixon Machado on a Wednesday, only to see him DFA'd on Friday, only to see him reacquired on Sunday, only to see him traded again.
Look, when I got into the Dixon Machado business, I wanted that to be for life.
I mean, enough of these, rotating moves. It's okay. It's like I understood it too because I play fantasy football and I do the same thing with my last spot on my fantasy roster that Farhan did with the Giants' last spot on their 25 or 40 man roster, except I'm doing it in fantasy football and he's doing it for real. I mean, that's really it. He kept cycling through the last guy in his roster with all this fidgety nervousness and he built nothing.
No, here's the thing. I got no problem with you fucking around with number 24, 25 on anybody's roster all the time.
Right. Just
if your 1 through 12 is right, which it never was.
And if you can build this awesome thing. And if you want to, diddle with the back of your roster, go diddle away. Who cares? But build a team with foundation pieces and that the fans can identify with and believe in. I mean, baseball more than other sports. I think the schedule comes out, people are like, oh, let's buy some tickets for this weekend. And we're going to Philly in July for a wedding. Let's buy some tickets. The Giants are there. So people like to go and kind of shop ahead of time. And with Farhan's moves, you always kind of felt like, I don't know who I'm going to be watching, and it just didn't work.
Let's make it through the rest of these chats, Larry.
Yeah,
then
last one here.
Move of the deadline day, and then that's the show, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we got this one from Fuji Simeon. Imagine if the NFL players could defer their salary like MLB. Imagine if Dak, Lamar, Allen, Mahomes could defer like Ohtani. What would that work in the NFL? I mean, anything could work. It could work. I mean, as far as their money, but as far as I mean that might. I mean, I'm sure there are players. I'll say this. I know Marshawn Lynch's agent, and I know that Marshawn Lynch used to live off his per diem. He didn't even touch his game checks. He invested 100% of his game checks, and he lived off the per diem, which is the daily amount of money that these NFL teams will give players on road trips. It might be $300 a day or something like that. So let's say they would go on a road trip and they were gone for 4 days, and he got $1,200 of per diem. He would just live on the $1,200. And then never touch his check, never touches his actual take home. So smart guy. And not everybody does that, unfortunately. And because of it, 78% of NFL players are bankrupt within 3 years of their final snap. It's just kind of unfortunate. That's going to do it for us. That's all the supers for today. You got a final thought, Damon, before we bolt for the door?
Your mic is like getting garbled. You're a little frozen in your picture right now, so we probably should be getting out. Oh no, you just bounced back. What do you think the biggest move of the NFL's overall deadline was yesterday? To me, Marshawn Lattimore going to the Commanders might be the biggest move of the deadline. Like, that's a monster one. We'll see what, DeAndre Hopkins officially ends up doing for that Kansas City Chiefs offense when it's all said and done. But Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders is a legit move. It really is.
Okay. Who had the best move? I thought Minnesota getting Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle, because they lost Christian Darrisaw. I thought that was huge. Why? Because Damon, I mean, you can't find offensive tackles. You can't trade for them. They're nowhere to be found. If you lose a guy, you're screwed. So I thought Minnesota did really, really well getting Cam Robinson. I mean, they also got Cam Akers, but Cam Robinson, I mean, and he played really well this last week. So I thought that was great. I thought the Chiefs won getting DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Uche. I thought Pittsburgh won. I mean, they got a big receiver in Mike Williams, and they got a really solid veteran defensive end in Preston Smith. I think Omar Khan did a nice job. I thought Baltimore did a nice job. They got Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver, for nothing. And then they also got some help at corner and Tre'Davious White.
You know who also won? Norv Turner, who, honestly, if you'd asked me before yesterday, is Norv Turner still alive? I would have said, I don't even know, actually. Is he still alive? Oh, he's alive and well. And now the offensive assistant coordinator, whatever, to come in and clean up whatever the Raiders are.
Yeah, well, his son is the OC, and he wanted somebody else, and so they hired Norv, and Norv's worked for the Raiders before. Norv is from Martinez. He's a Bay Area guy.
I know, but I didn't know Norv was even available. And
I mean, it's the '90s. I mean, he was the Cowboys OC in 1992.
Right.
It's now 2024. So
San Diego Charger head coach Norv Turner.
That's right. I thought the Bengals also getting Khalil Herbert was good from the Bears because they lost Zach Moss. They have to have a runner, and Khalil Herbert for a 7th-round pick. I thought that was a phenomenal get. So
yeah,
and then you talked about Lattimore. I mean, Lattimore, that was amazing. I mean, Washington is coming, man. Washington is getting better and better and better. And to add a corner, a true number 1 corner, Kansas City wanted him. Baltimore wanted him, but Washington outbid them for Lattimore. So I think in some ways maybe they did the rest of us a service because the rest of the league a service. Because if you put Marshawn Lattimore on the Chiefs, that's game over, man.
At what point in this year does it take further dissension by the Niners or further ascension by the Commanders to say, man, losing Adam Peters was maybe a bad idea?
Well, I don't know if you can say that because the 49ers, lost Adam Peters, but then, you could argue that their most recent draft without Peters was one of the best drafts they've ever had and during this regime. So I don't know. I know what you're saying, though. I think Peters is a really good personnel guy. I think he's going to do wonders in Washington. I think he already has. But I don't know that the Niners can't go on without him. Let's just say that.
Fair enough. Jonathan Mingo to the Cowboys.
Terrible. They paid more. The Cowboys paid more for Jonathan Mingo than the Chiefs paid for DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, he's much younger. I'll give him that much.
Come on.
That's about it.
That's unbelievable.
There you go. So, look, we're going to go ahead and be right back at it on Friday with a much more focused look at what it's going to take to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But between now and Friday, man, if you're looking for something delicious, head on down to Half Moon Bay, get yourself to Sam's Chowder House. And again, thanks so much to Sam's for being the exclusive sponsor here on Wake Up. We appreciate them very, very much. Go ahead and support Larry and I by getting yourself an incredible meal at Sam's and make sure you let them know that Darian Layman, Larry and Damon sent you. What is this?
When you go to Sam's, it's awesome to go there and it's awesome that we sent you, but just tell somebody when you go down there because they're busy and it would definitely help our show when you go to check out Sam's, if you just said, hey, Larry and Damon sent me from Wake Up. That's all you got to say. And the rest we'll take care of on our end. But thanks to everybody. Hope everybody has a great Wednesday. I'm going down to Santa Clara. I'm going to take a look at some of the linebackers. I'm going to go to practice. And I'm going to think to myself, you know what? Damn, this team looks good without good old Trent Baalke.
And, if you want to go talk about like maybe an early NBA game of the year, you get Warriors, you get Celtics. It's a big game tonight. Warriors are a very deep team. They're 6-1. The Celtics are 7-1. And then after that, they got an undefeated Cleveland team waiting for them. And then after that, they got the that's the Timberwolves, but the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a big 3-game stretch for a team that we're all trying to still figure out. So look out, everybody. It's Warriors basketball tonight on KNBR.
I don't typically bet NBA ball, Damon Lowry. I don't typically bet NBA ball, but I'll tell you, tonight I'm taking the Celtics. A little birdie told me that Jason Tatum has kind of got a little beef with Steve Kerr, and the Celtics have only lost once all year. The Warriors are good, but tonight they're going down to the Celtics.